Ready?
Yep. All right, guys. There's a lot going on in the present, space-wise.
True.
We just put a rover on Mars.
Oh, man, that was exciting to watch,
Stuck
wasn't
the
it?
landing.
Yeah,
It
that was
stuck it.
incredible.
And we have SpaceX doing their thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, recently just stuck the landing as well.
And then exploded 8 minutes later.
yeah, we were all excited about that one. It stuck the landing, and we left work excited. And then John texts us. Literally, I'm on my bike home, and he's like, "Yeah, it blew up.
It just blew up on the launch pad.
We're kind of nerds with rockets, especially me. I feel like I'm the biggest nerd. I kind of get these guys excited about it.
Space travel's been going on for a good part of 50, 60 years at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And putting human beings into the outer limits of our atmosphere and beyond.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of stories out there that I'm running across, because one story that just came out is somebody who worked for SpaceX as they were launching it is now writing a book. By the way, no pun intended.
Like when you mean
with
launching it, like when they started SpaceX.
When they started SpaceX, yeah.
Because that was a very confusing way to word that.
But
They
there's
probably part of their like new employee handbook is probably like, "Welcome to SpaceX. Your career is just taking off."
Yeah,
like,
that's
exactly.
We're going to get you into your launch program. That's what we call the training
We're
program.
gonna bring your career into the stratosphere. Yeah.
Suit up because we're gonna go zero gravity.
Okay, first of all, Elon Musk is cooler than that. He made the spacesuit look cool. He definitely doesn't have crappy training videos.
So anyway, this founding member, if you will, this initial engineer for SpaceX is now writing this book about things that happened when SpaceX was starting, like 20 years ago, right? And it's amazing because there's this story that is now coming out that SpaceX was not doing well. They had done a few tests, they didn't have a lot of money, and they had one more chance to test the Falcon 1 rocket. Is that what it's called, John?
Yeah.
All right, so back in 2008, they had to fly the Falcon 1 somewhere in the Pacific to test it, to make it take off.
Was that so it would land in water?
Yeah, and that's just where they were doing things out in like California, West Coast. They were doing stuff out in the Pacific Ocean. So as they were coming in for a landing, as they're transferring, all the engineers are on this plane with the Falcon 1 rocket on this giant like cargo plane that's taking it where it needs to go. They all of a sudden hear this loud boom, boom, and these pops. And the Falcon 1, as they're coming in for landing, is starting to implode.
Oh no! On the plane?
On the
pressure
plane.
was changing?
And they were sitting next to it in the cargo area. There were like engineers sitting like in jump seats next to it. So they start freaking out because the pressure, something's not right. And one of the engineers, whose last name is Dunn, he thought he could figure out what was going on if he could just crawl into the belly of the Falcon 1 while it's about to implode.
Okay.
No, don't do that.
Not my
Don.
first
You're
impulse.
going to be done.
So they get all of the engineers and everybody up in the front of the plane, and he has to crawl into the belly. And he, like this other guy, I think they tied something to his legs, so that
like they
if
got like a
something- he's
tether?
like, if I scream, you need to pull me out. So
not
he
a good
starts
system.
crawling into the rocket, and he said humans aren't supposed to be in it. And again, this could implode at any minute.
Yeah.
And he thought that if he took a wrench in there, he could loosen a pressure valve in the fuel system because he thought that's what was going on. Thankfully, he was right.
Oh my goodness.
So he loosens it, and air starts to like regulate things and all that stuff. So then he signals to the other guy, "Pull me out!" But he thought he was in distress, so he yanks him out, and he's like getting banged up against the side of these like pipes and hoses and all this stuff. He said by the time he got out, he was totally beat up. But he saved SpaceX and everybody on that flight.
Well, yeah, because
oh my goodness.
I remember reading things about how, those early days, they were very, very thin on money. I mean, even though they had Elon Musk, who was, very rich.
Well, I mean, he didn't fund it himself. He got investors.
He put a bunch of money into it, but I
Yeah.
mean, still, they just didn't have.
It's too much money for one.
Oh yeah, rockets are expensive. So this could have done them in.
It could have done them in. It could be the end.
See what I did there?
I see what you did.
Oh,
Done
done.
them in.
I went there. Yeah.
Yep.
So that just put me a little bit on a rabbit trail of other unknown like stories about the space programs, because there's multiple.
Oh
now.
yeah.
You've got the Russian space program, SpaceX. You got NASA.
Yep.
What I'm going to do now then is I'm going to tell you a bunch of mini stories, just little kind of fun facts / stories that a lot of people don't know about that have taken place in these various space programs. But I'm going to end with a doozy.
Oh.
Another story just like this from the Russian space program that is just as mind-boggling and amazing as the story I just told you. Okay.
Oh my goodness. I've heard some amazing Russian space program stories, because like if you want to think about our space program, and I've heard sometimes where you're like, oh, it was barely held together. The Russian ones, they were really,
You just wait.
they were going for it.
You just wait. So here we go. This is a good story that's coming out of NASA. When NASA finally put a probe on Mars, it was like a lander on Mars. This is something that was just released recently. It was known within NASA. 3 men from Yemen filed a lawsuit against NASA claiming that they inherited Mars 3,000 years ago from their ancestors. And they had to go through an entire court case to prove that these Yemen men did not own Mars.
What?
Come on.
I mean, I guess you could do that.
I guess you can sue somebody for anything, but like,
If they could prove they have like some religious tie to it, I don't know.
I've learned this recently that so much of the legal system is not like laws and stuff. It's has anybody tried?
has anybody ever tried to sue for this?
And then they discuss it in court and determine if it's illegal or
oh
not.
my gosh.
Yeah.
And then that's what the Supreme Court goes off of a lot, is like legal
Yeah.
precedent. Like, oh, it happened in here, so no.
The Yemenis men lost.
Really?
yeah,
They did.
no
Oh,
kidding.
Yeah.
that's surprising.
Here's another good one. John, you know a lot about NASA and space. The space shuttle started in the late
70s. I think the first launch might have been like 1980.
By the time it got toward the latter part of the space shuttle program in the early 2000s, it was old technology.
Yeah.
It reached the point where they didn't have the parts that they needed to keep the space shuttle running were not being manufactured anymore. And stories are coming out of NASA that it's 2002. NASA was buying parts for the space shuttle on eBay.
Oh, no. Like they're going and buying like old parts that people are selling for souvenirs?
Yes. Well, not just souvenirs, like just old mechanical and electronic parts that weren't
They
made
just don't make anymore.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, this old like compressor or something that they needed.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
I guess if it gets the
You gotta
job
do what you
done,
gotta do.
you gotta do what you
But
gotta do.
does that put a different spin on the fact that like Columbia? When was that?
That was 2003. Yeah.
So is there something
It's eBay's fault.
like maybe no? I would say NASA. Don't buy your parts on eBay. You're putting people in space.
They didn't have any choice, man. They should have shut down the space shuttle program.
That blows my mind. Like, couldn't you just have somebody make it?
I don't know.
Maybe they didn't have the money.
They were cutting funding by that point.
I guess it is government programs. Like, it's really tight. I've heard that's the difference between SpaceX and NASA. Is like when the government astronauts go to work for SpaceX, are like, this is amazing. We can do whatever we want.
This is a good one. In 2006, NASA had to admit that they inadvertently taped over the moon landing.
What?
All of the NASA tapes of the Neil Armstrong first moon landing were taped over to save money because they didn't want to buy any more tapes. So thankfully, CBS had some extra copies.
Oh my god.
Can you imagine that phone call from NASA to CBS? Like, hey, CBS, NASA here. By chance, can you like go through your closet? There might be like, you got like
I'm calling for a friend.
I don't know, just in case, just check and see if you got any moon landing tapes. Oh, you do? Okay.
Good.
I'm coming over right now.
Yeah.
Can we borrow those? Wow.
Because I've done that before, where you're like, oh no, I lost that footage. Call John. John, do you have this? Yeah. Okay, never mind. No reason. We're cool.
That was almost bad.
I love this one. Stories are coming out of NASA that is part of their training program for some of their physicists, astrophysicists, other scientific physicists,
Physicists.
cosmic physicists.
Right.
Should I keep going with
Like, are you
this?
talking about the physicists that go to space or the physicists that work down here?
That has lost all meaning. Is that
I
a
don't
word?
even know.
Physicist? Are we saying a word?
Physicist.
There?
It
just
is.
sounds like a sound to me.
It is rumored that NASA, in order to train them, they make them watch Armageddon, the movie where Bruce Willis takes a ragtag team up to an asteroid that's going to hit Earth to blow it up. And what they're asked to do, the trainees are told to identify the scientific accuracies versus inaccuracies.
Okay. All right. That's a good reason.
To just, science it.
That kind of
It's
makes
just a
sense.
fun first day at work.
Welcome to
kinda
NASA.
fun.
Your career is going to take off. NASA would do that.
Yeah.
Elon Musk wouldn't do that at SpaceX, but NASA would do that.
I did almost the exact same thing when I worked at Best Buy. I would show everybody the Geek Squad training video because I was a training manager. And it didn't matter if they worked Geek Squad or not. It was just fun. It's not exactly the same. I mean, they're sending people to space, and I was making sure people could sell TVs.
As a trainee, I would be nervous that this was like in high school when you could tell your biology teacher just didn't feel like teaching that day.
Yeah.
So he'd come in and make you watch like Mighty Joe Young or something like that.
You know it's going to be like an easy day when they wheel in the AV cart with the TV on it.
All right, guys, just watch Armageddon and find out the science versus non-science
I've
stuff.
been told by teachers that they do that on days that they stayed out too late the night before, like with their friends.
That makes sense.
Here's the next one. This is pretty cool. When the Saturn V rocket was being tested and launched by NASA,
That's a huge
That's
rocket.
a big old rocket.
I think it's the biggest rocket ever, right?
It will soon be passed by SpaceX's new rocket called
So awesome.
Super Heavy.
Super Heavy? They didn't even try with that name.
No, they don't need to, man.
Like, what are we going to call that rocket?
It's heavy. Really heavy.
Super heavy.
Are we
Yeah,
gonna-
that works.
We're going
Move
to call
on.
it really heavy? No, mega heavy.
What's the name of the boat that catches rockets that are falling out of the sky for SpaceX?
Oh, it's got like a
Mr. Steven?
Mr. Steven. This is brilliant. I love
That was
SpaceX.
named by the internet.
At any rate, stories are coming out that when the first Saturn V rocket was launched, they did not factor in sound dampening. And it caused a shockwave of sound that exceeded 220 decibels that was heard and felt 3 miles away, causing chandeliers to shake and dust to fall from the ceiling. That was the only time. They think it's one of the loudest noises humans have ever made.
That makes sense.
And since then, I didn't know this, but this is why when a rocket takes off, they douse hundreds of thousands of gallons onto the launch pad while it's taking off. I thought it was to keep things from catching on fire. Did I not say?
Yeah.
Water. It's to dampen the sound. Sound doesn't travel through water.
Sound
like it does through
dampeners.
air.
Yeah, it's like
I totally thought that was to prevent the fire too.
Isn't it brilliant?
makes a ton of sense. You'd think they were like rocket scientists,
Engineers over there or
yeah.
something. That's
These last couple are my favorite. Very few people know this, but as we know, in 1969, when the United States was trying to get to the moon, they were racing the
Russians.
And the Russians were putting up a valiant effort to try to get there as well.
Yeah.
Did you know that on July 18th, 1969, Buzz Aldrin done looked out his window on his way to the moon and saw coming in the opposite direction the Lunar 15 Soviet probe attempting to do science around the moon so they could get there before us. Like 2 cars passing on the interstate.
you kidding
Buzz Aldrin's
me?
like, there's one of the Russian things.
I did not know that.
Well, you do now.
Oh my goodness, that's incredible.
We owe a lot to the Russian space program because even though they were our competition during the space race, they did a lot of trial and error for us.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
In 1965, the Soviets were the first to do a spacewalk.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
It was supposed to be a 12-minute endeavor. It started off okay.
Yeah.
But then Alexei Leonov, sorry if that's not the way you say it, he got a little too confident when he got out there. He's like first guy floating in space, right?
I mean, that's pretty Russian. Just like, hey,
like,
I'll be fine. What was that? That was horrible. I couldn't even do
I'll be fine. It's
it was like a weird Irish
David,
Russian guy. I was like, hang on, let me get there. Zamabuji.
No, you got to do your wild ideas thing. You have to do the whole
In
Russia.
Russia.
You.
Oh, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
That's close.
And all of a sudden, his suit started to blow up. The people who designed the suit did not think of the vacuum of space, so he started to inflate like a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, like the blueberry girl from Willy Wonka, and was unable to maneuver himself. So he floats back to the docking, like to get into the spacecraft, and he had inflated so much he could not fit into the airlock.
Yeah.
So it had to hit a valve on his spacesuit to release the pressure to get it to go down, which causes such an extreme pressure differential. The heat in his suit started going up.
Yep.
And he started to get the bends, which is not good. No. Finally got into the airlock, couldn't get the airlock closed. So this 12-minute airlock ends up going 20 minutes. By the time he got the suit off, he had almost had heat stroke. They're like, okay, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Earth.
Let's pretend this never happened. That's what I would do.
That added some time to their trip. It took them a minute to get settled, get back in his seat. So they're like, let's re-enter and just get back to the mother Russia. Right?
Have a little swig of vodka.
The problem is at that point, for whatever reason, they had missed their re-entry window and the automated re-entry system wouldn't fire. So they had to do a manual re-entry, which put the Voskhod 2 spacecraft about 400 kilometers off track. So they come flying in.
Just a bunch of Russians just like
red hot.
Coming in hot. We're coming in hot.
Rumor has it.
That was German.
Das ist gut. No, it's German again.
Yeah.
Hang on.
It's hard to do it. It's hard to do it
We
loud.
need to land the spacecraft.
Yeah, we're coming in hot.
They eventually land 400 kilometers off their target.
In like Siberia, right?
It was in a snowy forest in the Ural Mountains, and no one in ground control knew where they were.
Oh, no.
So they radioed, and they were like, okay, we think we know where you are, and we'll come get you. But there was such a thick forest, they had to stay overnight. Rumor has it they had to chop wood and fight off wolves.
Yep.
In the then 23-degree heat or cold, their heating system failed. Eventually, choppers got there. They had to ski to them to get them. As funny as this is actually what put the Soviets so far behind, they would never be able to catch the Americans in the space race again because of all those setbacks.
All those hang-ups.
Wow. I feel like that'd make a really good movie.